Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of EasyPay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million. This is going to be a very special episode of Beyond $1 Million. I've been on the road for the last couple of weeks, and anytime I'm on the road at events, marketing is what has this resounding resonance because everybody's talking about the tactics and strategies that help them grow their business. And I come back with this laundry list of things to do. So today in this episode, we're going to pull the golden nuggets out of every episode we've ever done and pull the things that are actually going to work from you, from driving social traffic to the nitty gritty of email marketing to strategy behind it and how to structure it to some really, really cool tips and tricks. First up, we have Ryan Pineda. Ryan has built multiple 8-figure companies, all on the back of social media. He's got a pretty deliberate strategy that he uses. And I can tell you that I personally am not as dialed as he is, which shows in the numbers, but there's a lot to learn from him on this. So grab a pen, let's dive in.
I want to get tactical for a second because I heard you speak once. And that one time that I heard you speak, you had a very structured, clean approach to how you were delivering content. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was fucking great. And it makes sense that through that lens, or when people look through that lens, they could see a path to be successful,
right?
In the world of pushing out media that will draw people back to you,
right?
So it's not a surprise to me that you're launching a new company around that. Can you break that down for me? How you think about putting out content, what the structure is for it, and the framework?
Yeah, you're talking about the presentation I gave at War Room?
Yes.
Yeah. So for those, who obviously majority of you weren't there.
Yes.
It was about how I use Instagram Reels to get people to DM me and how it takes them through an automation, which then converts to a lead, which then converts to a sale. It's very automated and it costs $0. So it's one of the craziest things that not many people even know about or know how to do. And it's freaking crazy. It's maybe millions of dollars. So I won't talk about that strategy specifically, but I'll say that the general strategy of content is this for me. I want to be, as known as humanly possible and people should recognize me, whether they know my name or not. They're like, dude, I've seen that guy before, right? Like that's the first step is if you can become recognizable, then that's step one. Step two is, okay, now people need to start understanding what I'm all about. Right. So if people consume my content, then they know, okay, Ryan's in real estate. He's got a family. He's, got this going on. He's got good content. He's always teaching people different ways to think about money and time and business and, lifestyle and all that stuff. Right. So they start to understand who I am and what I talk about. The third thing is they now start to become bought in with, what it is I offer in my companies. Right. Like I want to give them free value and all this stuff with my content, but if you never give them a sales pitch or a call to action, what's the point? You're not even helping them. Like they're just becoming observers versus actual clients that you can help, right? Because I know I can help you way more the moment you join one of my companies versus you just passively watching my stuff. And so you got to mix in your call to actions when appropriate. And for me, the way that we do call to actions across all the platforms varies, so if I'm on a YouTube video, sometimes I might just casually mention it like, hey, you like what we're talking about? Go to futureflipper.com. Go check it out. We'll help you invest in real estate. Cool. Maybe if I'm talking about an apartment we bought, I'm like, hey, you want to invest with us on this next deal? Go to pinedacapital.com. Boom. No hard pitches in content. It's all very soft. And it's always after a ton of value. It's never like a normal ad that you would see like, hey, Pineda Capital is the best fund you could ever get into. Here's why. That's not valuable. That's an ad. So what most people fail at with content is they go ad and they don't give value. And so I always just do all value, soft pitch if they want it. That's every piece of content. And so like with the...
Is that every piece? Or do you have a ratio of, hey, X amount of the time I'm going to put a CTA into it?
Yeah, so it's definitely not every piece of content. So yeah, with YouTube videos, only if it's applicable to what it is I'm talking about. If there's something relevant happening, I will definitely plug it. And, you know, on the Instagram side, as of today, we release 6 reels a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Damn.
So 4 of them are pure value based. There's no call to action. It's just game. And then the other 2 are, you know, 98% value based throughout the whole video with a small call to action at the end.
That's going to a landing page of some sort?
Yeah, it's just basically saying, hey, DM me the word flip. You know, they DM me the word flip and now goes through an automation. It sends them a landing page with a VSL. Hey, watch the VSL. Great. You like it. Apply. They get on a sales call, you know.
Are you using a tool to do the DM management, or you have?
Yeah, we use ManyChat.
Oh, do you? Okay. How do you structure what you're going to put out for content? Do you have a library of things that you're growing all the time and thinking, hey, conceptually, these are the videos I'm shooting? Somebody else do it?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a lot of content.
Yeah, I have an entire content team. You know, I think I've said this before. I spend around $40,000 a month on my own personal content, not my company's. And, you know, that returns the best return I can do. And, you know, everybody's in a different department. You know, we got the YouTube, the TikTok, you know, the poster, the producer, the videographer, the podcast switcher, the podcast editor, the TikTok editor. You know, we got all these guys. So yeah, everybody knows their role. They're posting. My job, I mean, most of the stuff we create is all new original content. You know, our ads are repeated until they stop working, but the actual content itself, I mean, every week you're going to see 5 videos on YouTube that you've never seen before. You know, you're going to see new podcast interviews you've never seen before. You know, you're going to then get all the repurposed clips of those on Instagram and TikTok of me chopping up the best highlights from these conversations, you know? So we do a ton of repurposing that allows us to really amplify the content.
Mm-hmm. But how do you think about the original concepts? Like, do you have, because there are many of certainly the framework of many videos is sort of, if you're doing this, you're doing it wrong, or here are the top 3 things, or so on and yada, yada, right? So you've got kind of these initial hooks that might work.
Yep.
But then it's, what are the topics that you're trying to cover? How do you structure that?
Well, you know, it depends on the form of content. So for me, I'm everywhere with all my content. So you could watch me long form like this. It's going to be an hour long plus. You could watch me on YouTube for a 10 to 20 minute video, or you can watch me on Instagram, TikTok, which is going to be 30 seconds to a minute, right? So you can consume my stuff anywhere and everywhere, depending on how deep you want to go, right? So I think they all vary in how they're thought about and structured. You know, in a podcast, starting from the longest, most of the time I'm interviewing a guest. There's no real agenda other than, hey, like, let's pull out the nuggets out of this guest and have a good conversation. With YouTube videos, that was one where there was a lot of prep and brainstorming the first couple of years I did YouTube. You know, I did a lot of videos where I spent a lot of time scripting and saying, okay, this video I'm going to talk about how to find a real estate deal. This video I'm going to talk about how to raise money. This video I'm going to talk about how to hire somebody, right? And so I hit my bullet points and, you know, make a 10-minute video in depth on that subject. And that got me really well. But, you know, eventually I realized I don't really necessarily like doing this anymore. And I got better uses of my time now that my social media is bigger. I don't need to like grow it so hard. It'll organically grow now at this point. So I just started vlogging. So now, you know, my guy vlogs me like Gary Vee, and that gives us 2 videos a week. And I literally don't have to do anything. He's just vlogging me, and they're good enough to figure out, hey, that was a good piece. That was a good piece. And they make these 10-minute vlogs that are sick. So that gives me 2 videos now. Then we just started repurposing the podcast into like, you know, Joe Rogan clips style, where it's like, hey, this is the best 10 minutes from my podcast with Brad. And so we throw those clips on my channel. And then that basically leads that I only need to film 1 video a week. And so I make 1 intentional video, and it's usually something that's has no script. I might go to a house flip and I'm just walking around the house. I might go to somebody's business, go have them tell me about their business. It's very experiential. I don't do very many, all right, here's what I'm teaching you, blah, blah, blah anymore. I've stopped doing that because it's not something I enjoy doing because it requires scripting. It's boring. I have to like just talk to a camera by myself.
Right.
You know, I did that and it got to me where I'm at. And I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So on the YouTube side of things, I don't really have to think of topics. Like they're just coming naturally from what happens by being me. And on the podcast, or I already said the podcast, you know, and then it takes you to the reels and the shorts and stuff. And that's the most popular content that exists today. And so that should be, in my opinion, everyone's focus, because that's how you get viral and a ton of views. Between those, I get over 1 million views a day on all my stuff, and majority is short form. Okay. So for me, majority of that content is repurposed from this, the podcast, from my YouTube videos, other stuff. So I don't have to do any work there.
Yeah.
They're just taking the best clips, and they're so good at identifying that was such a good piece of content. Let me make it into a reel. And then once a month, I will film direct response, you know, reels where I'll sit down for about 4 or 5 hours. I'll knock out 30 of them. And, you know, they're right here on this white wall that we've got over here. And, you know, basically I have a team that feeds me like, not the ideas, but just like just the question. They'll be like, Ryan, how would somebody go make, you know, $5,000 this month if they had no money? And then I'll just be like, all right, well, you know, and I come up with the answer. There's nothing scripted. And he'll just give me a bunch of questions that maybe they see in the comments that they're even wondering themselves, and just pull it out of me. So I don't do any scripting anymore, really.
What do you do differently today at, you know, multi 8-figure that you didn't do when you were starting? What are the lessons of the year?
So, I mean, to your point, I think I've always had the demeanor and the confidence, even when I was broke flipping couches. Like in my mind, making $1,200 as a minor leaguer, I was like, I'm the man. Seriously. I'm like, totally. I'm playing pro baseball and I'm going to be a big leaguer.
Yep.
I don't care what anyone else thinks of me right now. And even when I was flipping couches, I was like, dude, this job is tight. Who else is making $8,000 a month doing this? Like, this is easy. I don't work 9 to 5. And then I started flipping houses, and, you know, people are like, you're going to max out your credit cards to do that? I'm like, yeah, it's going to work. And then I started doing social media, you know, little over 2 years ago. And people are like, why would you start making YouTube videos and dancing on TikTok and all this stuff? I'm like, because it's going to be really big. That's why. And same thing is true now with NFTs and, you know, real estate and crypto. People in the real estate space are like, dude, this stuff is, I don't even understand. It's so far away. And I'm like, this is going to be big. And I'm telling you, like, I plan to make billions of dollars doing this, because I know where technology goes, and I know how quickly technology like advances and changes things. And so, to that end, I guess whether you call it arrogance or confidence or faith or belief, I have it no matter what circumstance I'm in. So, I would say, what have I learned from all this? It's like, number one, no matter what circumstance you're in, like, you need to have faith for whatever that next level is for you. If you don't believe you can get to that next level, and you don't believe you're going to be successful, you are not going to be. And that is the definition of growth, right? Like, you would not be growing if you just stayed in the same spot. Like, you have to do something, literally by the definition of growth, different, that you've never achieved before. And so if you've never achieved it and you've never done it, then it requires a level of faith that, hey, if I go out on a limb here and try to do something I've never done before, and, you know, it could fail, it could work, but I have faith that it will work, and then I'm on the right track. And so, has it worked every time? No, I've had so many missteps, but I know that with each misstep, it gets me that much closer to the next level. And so I think, man, as an entrepreneur, the number one trait that you must have is a degree of faith. And so I wouldn't call it cockiness or anything, but like, you have to have extreme faith that everything is going to work out.
I like that. I like that lens in general. And I also like I think it's important for people to see the parallels between those words, or that they are potentially synonyms, which is faith, belief, confidence, etc. And I did also like the breakdown of the definition of growth being you have to be doing something you've never done before. And in order to do that, you have to believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
Or randomly stumble upon it, which is highly unlikely with more difficult tasks.
Or you're literally staying in the same spot, doing things that you know you've done before, which requires no faith. It's like you've already accomplished it. Like, what is there? Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. Everything requires a level of faith. You have faith that by doing the same stuff, you'll either remain doing what you're doing, which is not true because the world's always changing. Technology's changing. People are coming for your cookies in business and competition. So if you think that doing the same crap you've always done will work, you're actually going to decline way faster than you think.
Yeah. It's the inevitable. And that's certainly true with investing dollars right now in our current economy as well.
Keala Kanae, beyond it being my favorite name in the marketing world, he is also one of the sharpest. And he's great for a lot of reasons, but one is that his KPIs are dialed. So everybody has to send email to market, period. It has to be a part of the marketing mix. And maybe you think about DMs, maybe you think about sort of a more direct funnel. But if you want to capitalize on your audience, emails have to be a part of the mix. And if you're not doing it, you need to. Keala drills into how to get that to work because a lot of people send emails and it doesn't work for them. Or it picks up a little bit of business, but not as much as it could. This clip is one of the best things that I've heard for the actual tactical elements of how to increase open rates, increase click-throughs, and actually drive revenue through email. Here we go.
Literally, when we sat down, you said, we have a 58% open rate on our emails. Mm-hmm. This is, if I didn't know things about you, I would just think that you were a liar. Mm-hmm. Like that's a wild percentage, right? Mm-hmm. That is average open rates are what?
Probably somewhere between 10 and 15%, maybe.
Maybe, right? And 58.
58.
In what context do you get a 58% open rate?
Explain what you mean by in what context.
Well, so like if I said, so I have a 92% open rate when I send to my family. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So you have a 58% open rate.
Account wide.
Oh, crazy.
Across our entire list.
By the way, it's a little fucked up that 8% of the time my family doesn't open the emails.
If I were your family. No.
So 58% account wide is crazy.
So, there's lots of ways that I can go on this, but long and short of it is at the time that I did my slides for this event. So I got an update yesterday from the guy that manages our list. And it's actually the current open rate account wide is 59.1%. But at the time that I built the slides for this presentation, we had about 51 million and whatever many, emails sent this year, 2022, 29 million, blah, 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 whatever numbers opens. So we came out to 58.44% open rate. Now we're up to about 59%. The major strategy here is that just most people just don't understand how email marketing works and what the email platforms are looking for. And when I say email platforms, I'm like email service providers, Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, these sorts of things. Like, what are they looking for in order to get an email in the inbox? If you don't know the rules, you can't win the game. And the rules have definitely been changing and they're tightening up. They're getting more and more difficult. So email was not designed so that you could click send and a million people could hear your message. That's not what it was designed for. Email was designed to be a conversation between two or a few parties. And, so it's really about dialing in and turning your email list instead of a broadcasting system into more of like a conversational system and driving that. So the way that we do this is, to give you kind of a short breakdown of how this works. Obviously I won't do the whole presentation here, right? But the things that control your email deliverability at the highest level, the number one thing that's most important is the IP reputation. So the reputation that's attached to the IP address that you're mailing from to begin with. So the server that is hosting the emails that you're sending, what is the IP reputation attached to that server? Now, depending on where you're at, in business, you may or may not have control of that. The vast majority of people don't have any control of that because they're sending from some sort of a platform that's using a shared IP. which means that you're mailing from that IP address, I'm mailing from that IP address, and 100 other folks or a few hundred other folks potentially might be mailing from that IP address. And now we're sharing the reputation. So if there's people on the platform or on that IP abusing their list or not delivering well, it's hurting all of us.
And let's get specific for 1 second. So you're talking about the platform being like ActiveCampaign or
Correct.
Klaviyo or pick a email automation, MailChimp, email automation platform, HubSpot.
Correct.
That's sending. Got it. And so usually it's their IP address. And so several users that have a MailChimp account all share that IP address.
Correct.
Great. Got it.
And so if you're on a shared IP, you cannot control the reputation. There's too many other factors at play. So step one is to own the IP address so that it's only your IP. And therefore you can now control the reputation attached to it. The next thing that's going to control your deliverability after that beyond the IP is your domain reputation. So
and hold on, the controlling your IP, some of these platforms, just one of the value props that they have is that they allow you to have a dedicated IP.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So it's picking a email marketing platform that allows a dedicated IP through it. Is
Correct.
that the first step?
I would say that's the first step, depending on where you're at economically. It's like that may or may not make sense economically for your business. You might not be at a level of scale yet where that makes sense financially. But yeah, for us, we have dedicated IPs.
Got it.
So then one level below that is, and these are ranked, I'm giving them to you in order, meaning the more optimized you are at the highest level, the more you can get away with at the lower levels. So the domain reputation is the next thing. So domain reputation basically means that like when you send an email from your name at yourdomain.com has a reputation that's attached to it. And these email service providers will assign a reputation to it over time based on your open and engagement rates in your emails. So one like cardinal sin that I see a lot of like early stage entrepreneurs make is that they use their same domain that they email with internally and with vendors. They use that same domain to mail their list. Well, and then if you do that, then eventually you're not going to even be able to inbox when you're sending an email to your mom as an example, because the domain has a reputation attached to it.
There's the 8%. That's why my family doesn't open 8% of the time.
Well, we'll at least, I'll let you lean on that so you feel better.
Thank you.
So anyway,
I do.
Domain reputation is the next one. So the ability for you to watch and control the reputation that's being attached to your domain. After that, you get into the basics. It's content and it's links. So content is what do your emails say? Like if you're using a term like Viagra or sexual activity or whatever, you're not going to inbox, right? And then there's the links that are inside of that email. So when
you say you're not going to inbox, do you mean that you're not going to hit the primary tab in Gmail?
Correct.
Okay. So you might hit promotions or social. So those are the three tabs.
Well, if you're using some of those words I just gave you, you're probably hitting the spam.
Yeah, okay.
But so we consider inboxing the primary tab on Gmail.
Got it. Okay.
Anything less than that is like not quite the inbox because you don't check those other tabs.
And no, that's for sure. And how do you assess before you get to the next layer down? How do you know what the words are that you're not allowed to use? I mean, obviously there are some that seem pretty clear, but how do you know?
Well, you can find these lists online of like kind of your spam trigger words, but that's a little bit misleading because it's really not just the trigger word. It's the context in which you're using the word as well. So as the AI gets more and more intelligent on these platforms, like you've probably noticed that when you're in Gmail right now and you start sending an email, it'll start finishing your sentences for you. You've noticed that, right? And how often would you say that like it finishes the sentence fairly closely to what you were about to say?
It's pretty good, man.
Most of the time.
It's pretty good. Right? And it almost always is close enough. And in fact, it's not always my character, my personality. I'm like, I wouldn't normally say that, but fuck it.
But it's so easy to hit tab and
yeah, exactly. It's easy enough to just hit the button and keep going.
So that AI is developed from understanding like when you speak to this person, whoever you're sending an email to, what are the contexts usually of your conversations? Generally speaking, what are the contexts of the conversations that you're having when you're sending emails? So it's pulling that information in and trying to figure out how to finish your sentences for you, right? So if you understand that, then you understand that like that intelligence is looking at the context of a conversation, not just the content of a conversation. So it doesn't matter necessarily as much about what words you're using, but in what context are you using the words. So spam trigger words used to be something that was like very simple 5 years ago to say like, oh, well, you can't use these words. But these days, that's not quite the case. Yeah. And there's a lot of information or training out there about people like talking about how to like check your content, like, and check your URLs and stuff and to like check your deliverability. But it's based on those latter two, items that I talked about. So they're looking at content and links versus if you have a very high IP reputation and a high domain reputation and you have a high open rate and engagement rate with your list, you can almost get away with just about anything else. You know, don't take that too far, but you can get away with a lot more stuff in terms of content and the links that you have in your emails.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right?
It makes total sense.
Further up that you're optimized, the more you can get away with down below.
Yeah, this is a huge, I think, eye-opening takeaway probably for a lot of people because like simplest terms for me, where I went immediately was SEO in 2001, right? SEO in 2001, the way that you ranked a site in any search engine in 2001, 99, 2005 even, was keyword stuffing. So like you would just put entirely, you would just put a shitload of the keywords that were relevant that you knew people were searching for. You didn't even have to have them in the body of the site. You could bury them in metadata or in like white text on a white background at the footer of the page, right? But the search engines would crawl it, they'd find it, and you would rank, right? Well, of course, the algorithms got smarter, and we're like, well, that's not serving the people's desires. They're not finding what they want. So now the SEO algorithms have gotten so much smarter. You definitely can't keyword stuff, right? It's much more elaborate. It would serve to reason that naturally email deliverability, which by the way, is also governed by the same motherfuckers that are controlling the SEO.
Correct.
Right? It's going to be more complex. So I think that's for me, that's a very powerful insight to think, oh, okay, I should probably rethink this.
Next up, we have Perry Belcher, who is hilarious. Outside of just amazing stories that he tells, he has some really phenomenal tactics and strategies around marketing. But here's the thing. The structure and framework through which you approach marketing, how you target people, when you target people, why you target people is tremendously important. And I kind of always thought that Perry was a shoot from the hip kind of person. And in fairness, he is. And that's part of what makes him good because he iterates quickly and drops what doesn't work and pursues what does. But this story about how he strategically grew a multi-8-figure company through different marketing channels and products caught my attention. I hope it catches yours too.
So at this point, digitalmarketer.com exists and is doing what roughly in revenue?
I don't have any idea.
Okay. Well, so
I don't have any idea what Digital Marketer's revenue is.
No, not now. In 2014.
Oh, in 2014?
Yeah.
We were probably doing 20 million.
So you're doing, roughly 20 million in 2014. And
I think we did $21 million, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014. But that was kind of everything in a lump.
Okay. Including the other brands, other companies, or?
I think so.
And this is where I'm going with it is
21 or 24 million. I can't remember.
But DM's doing well, right?
Yeah, it was doing fine. Yeah.
And then you have these other brands that you go pursue. Why do you split your focus and pursue these other brands and these other projects?
That was a really weird, I'll tell you exactly how that came to be. And there wasn't a lot of thought in it. We had a client that came in and
best way to do business.
Yeah, you're right. We had a client that we were, you know, one of those 25K days. Remember I was talking about those?
Yeah.
So we had a client that would come in and pay 25K every 6 months or so. And he would just tell us why what we were proposing wouldn't work for his business.
Fun.
And then 6 months later, he'd book another day. So finally, we were looking at the fundamentals of the business one day, and Ryan and I walked out of the room. We were working with him. And I said, man, let's just buy it. This is a good deal. He doesn't want to do it. Let's just buy it. So we bought it. And we bought, I think, 2/3 of it, if I remember. I don't know. This story could be totally wrong numerically, but I think we bought 2/3 of it. And the guy was a true believer. He was a true survivalist believer, right? So we're humping along. So we went from he was doing about 30 grand a month. So we get up to a couple $100,000 a month within 3 months because we knew there were knobs we could turn there, right? So we got up to, it might not have been that much, but it was a lot. Maybe 100, I think 180 grand or so a month. And one afternoon we're in the office and the guy comes in and he says, hey man, at like 5 o'clock on a Friday, hey man, we gotta make plans. We gotta convert all of our money to cash to gold by Monday. And we're like, what? He said, yeah, man, you don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. And I said, what's going to happen on Tuesday? He said, man, if I tell you, you're probably going to think I'm crazy.
We're kind of already there, buddy.
We're close. And he's a dear friend. He's actually a really good guy. Ryan made the joke. He said, well, if everything's going to go to hell on Tuesday, you should just give us all your part now. Doesn't matter, right? But we had a joke. But bottom line was, we bought him out.
Wow.
Because he was sure that the economic world was going to collapse on Tuesday. And Tuesday came and Tuesday went, as this talk of this recession will likely come and go. And nothing happened. Uh-huh. Right? As oftentimes nothing happens, right? That's about the time I moved over there to full-time put my attention to that business. So I put my attention to that business. He put his attention to DM. And we went from $200,000 a month to $3 million plus a month. You were processing all that, I guess, in 16. Mm-hmm. And then Trump was elected. Mm-hmm. And as soon as Donald Trump became president, the whole survival industry just kind of imploded. Everybody's like, we're fine now. That's cool. Seriously, they really, but you know that. You saw it happen. How this works. Yeah. You saw it happen. It was really crazy. And then everybody thought when Biden got elected, it would come back. It kind of modestly has, but not like that. There was like a perfect storm. It was like you got a very assertive woman or a black man, just driving that base nuts of the potentiality they could be. Either one of them could be president, drove that base crazy. So it was really easy to, they were riled up. They were spending money.
But so the survival space was only one of, 8 other companies that you're running?
Yeah. So what we did, I ran survival for like a year and it got really big. I mean, we were doing we went really quick to $1 million a month, like less than 6 months. We were at $1 million a month. And then, I just had this epiphany one morning and I said, it's not the survival thing that's making us money. It's the model that we're running. So let's look at our, customer and run them through Nielsen and Tower Data and find out what else they're into. So it turned out they were into DIY projects. They were into home cooking recipes, barbecuing, and they were into guns. They were into conservative political news. So we created all these properties, 4 or 5 other properties around the same customer's other interests. And we began launching one every month or so. And we launched it from this one. It's all based on the Randolph Hearst model. It's how Hearst Publishing formed.
I don't know what that is.
You never watched Citizen Kane? If you give me a little more champagne, I'll tell you the story.
I'm in.
So Randolph Hearst owned newspapers back in the day in the 1920s. And he used his newspapers to launch magazines. And then he would launch a magazine and he would find the sub-reader of that magazine. He would launch another magazine. So like Red Book and Better Homes and Gardens and all those, I think all those were Hearst properties, but most major magazines were owned by the Hearst Corporation. And he would use I kind of coined a phrase there that media begets media. So if you own a media company, you can use that media company to start another media company like TMZ. TMZ owns TMZ, but they own the Daily Fish Wrapper and they own 4 or 5 other websites. Larry Flint that I got to meet and spend a lot of time with actually in Bel Air. I used to drink with Larry Flint at Bel Air Hotel when I lived out there.
I don't know who that is.
He started Hustler magazine.
I'm just kidding. I know who that is.
Yeah, of course you do. Elon Musk, you never heard of. Larry Flint. Larry Flint, you know who that is. But Larry Flint started tons of other adult magazines and then eventually tons of adult websites and in tons of adult clubs. He knew his customer. You know, he knew his customer and what they bought. So we expanded off. And then eventually the weird one was DIY projects. We noticed that when we started, it was all the men were the customer base, but as more women came in and became customer base there, a lot of the searches were DIY makeup. So we started another site called makeuptutorials.com and drove the makeup people from this site over to that site. And that site became popular. And from there, we built a whole nother circle of women's interest.
Wild. So ultimately,
Makeup Tutorials was born from survival life. That
amazing.
should tell you something about the customer base. I'll tell you a funny story really quick. So for a while, we were running a lot of Amazon affiliate stuff, and we run it through our affiliate link, and we send them over to buy our products to Amazon. And we had our credit card knife thing. But as an affiliate, if you run it through your affiliate link, you can actually see what else they buy when they buy it.
Through Amazon's affiliate program?
Yeah. You can see the shopping cart of the person because you get paid commission on everything they buy in the cart. If you send them over to Amazon to buy a widget, they buy your $10 thing and a big screen TV, you get paid the affiliate commission on both, right?
It's so crazy.
It's kind of cool. So, but they show you, I don't know if they still do or not, they show you what else the person bought. And one of our best orders, we screenshot it. A guy bought a credit card knife, a 4XL bright blue spandex jumpsuit, and a penis pump. That was his shopping cart. So you got to wonder what that weekend was like. It's gonna, somebody was having a party.
It's it's the making for a ridiculous movie right there.
Yeah, right.
For sure. That's a great character in a movie somewhere. So ultimately, I think that, from the outside, I looked at it and thought, why the fuck is Perry doing 12 different things? And then the whole rest of the team is driving one product through digital marketer. And now through conversation, it sounds much more like Perry was really focused on maximizing the LTV of the buyer.
Of the customer. Perry wasn't doing multiple things. It's always I say the dumb way to look at it, but I've had partners, employees, and why are we doing 19 things? We're not doing 19 things. If Sam Walton had said, I sell tomatoes, I'm going to focus on tomatoes.
He'd have a smaller company.
You think? Right? It was the dumbest thing ever to say that. It's like, well, what are you doing? Because really, online retailing is just retailing. It's just retailing. You're serving, and the hardest part of it is building an audience. So once you've built an audience of, Bud from the firing range, that's our guy, right? Bud that loves going to the firing range, and he's got a bunch of guns, and he's kind of overweight, and he's got a really nice recliner, and he watches a lot of Fox News at night, and he's been married to the same woman forever, and he bitches and complains about the taxes and tells everybody there's a coming recession, and he's worried about everything, is scared of his own shit. That's our guy. So when he's not, the best example is not mine. Unfortunately, I'm really pissed about it, but Bud is not always survivaling. Right? So what else is Bud doing when he's not survivaling? Well, one of the most brilliant things in a long time is Black Rifle Coffee, also known as coffee. Put in a bag with an AR-15 on the front of it because a bunch of dudes love AR-15 shit. So it's like, got an AR-15? Drink coffee? Buy Black Rifle Coffee. It's just funny that people don't think about that.
All right. You are going to love this next clip. Jason Fladlien is one of the most deliberate, strategic, practical, pragmatic marketers I've ever met. And he's super charismatic, which is an odd combination. But he did a $57 million launch last year that EasyPay Direct facilitated for the payments. And one of the things that was so powerful that allowed it to work was the strategy that he deployed and how much time he spent on the front end creating that. Listen up, because I fail at this one over and over and over. I spend too much time executing and not enough time designing the strategy that's going to work. Does that resonate with you?
My hierarchy of what's important in business is here's marketing. Strategic positioning sits atop of marketing. If you're chopping down a tree, the marketing is the axe swinging, and the strategic positioning is the sharpening of the axe first. A lot of people are trying to chop down trees with dull axes. They're using marketing. But what we try to do is position something so that the marketing naturally flows from it in a way where we're swimming downstream as opposed to swimming upstream. It becomes a byproduct of the proper type of positioning. So I'll give you a very basic example of that. The personal computer was kind of this machine that computed things and was crunching and doing technology, and it was industrial grade, and that was all you had, right? And then Apple comes along and they put colors on it. They make it cool. They make it like a designer gear. So people now feel superior just by walking around with their MacBook Pros. Who knows if it's a better computer or not, and Apple becomes the most valuable company in the world. What they did there was position their product not as a computer for geeks, but as a fashion accessory. And that is strategic positioning. Elon Musk didn't say, hey, we're crunchy granola type of electric vehicles. He says, dude, watch this. They go from 0 to 60 faster than your butthole can pucker. It's like, cool. That transcended the crunchy granola crowd, and it entered into a whole new thing. That's strategic positioning. Now, all marketing will support that, and you need good marketing still. But a chef with bad ingredients could be the best chef in the world, and he's still not going to cook a world-class meal. And so here's what Will and I immediately hit upon and realized was Dan came to us, and he had what I considered the very best system for producing cash flow that I'd ever seen. And the market we knew we could easily reach, cash flow was their primary concern. Building wealth was a fantasy that, they can't eat philosophy. They need actual money in the bank account by the end of the month just to feel safe. And we had that, and it was powerful, and it was easy to demonstrate, and it was exciting. But the flaw immediately in what Dan had provided to us was the following. He had only shown this. First of all, he was very successful with it. He'd made millions doing this, but he'd only shown it to like 6 people. They were all successful, fantastic. However, 2 problems. Problem number 1, they were all friends of his. And problem number 2, they were all already successful business people. And so we had anticipated this going in. What's the major constraint to the sell? See, Brad, oftentimes when people do marketing or even business, they only focus on the benefit. What can I give to them? What can I offer? What can I make better? How could I improve? Yada, 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 right? I try to, as much as possible, say, what's the excuse that if I removed it would automatically have the thing occur? And so instead of trying to get them excited to move forward, I instead remove the thing that stops them from moving forward. And then naturally, as a result, they tend to move forward. And so we wanted to remove that biggest constraint, because I could show results till we're blue in the face. And I know that that percentage of the market that changes everything would still be resistant. We would have done 10 million probably instead of 57 million. So that was the first thing. Now, here's the second thing, and this is super important as well. How do you put a value on something that's never been sold?
I mean, my answer to that is you create it yourself, or you anchor it to something else.
Exactly. And that's what we always do. So it's like, hey, listen, I got a brand new program. Like, let's take weight loss, for example. You could say, hey, listen, here's the value of this thing. Instead of, emotional eating and doubling your grocery bill and then having to go to a therapist for 10 years because of the trauma involved in that, and that totals $57,227. You could instead buy my weight loss program for $99. What a great deal, right? Yes. So relative comparison to other established values is a great way to show why your thing is a bargain, because otherwise it's just expensive. Like when we rolled this out initially, we tested it at a $2,500 price point, and then we officially launched at a $3,500 price point. That's not chump change. That's not couch cushion money. That's a lot for anybody to invest. And then on top of that, to make the system work, they need $3,000 in the crypto market. And then they need to buy a third-party software. Talk about a convolution of all convolutions. You're asking a person, hey, pay me essentially $7,000, you complete stranger. And yeah, trust me, we make them sign an NDA and a user agreement. I mean, you've seen this, right? So we'll break down some more of that stuff later. This is hardcore. This is really high stakes kind of stuff. So traditionally, you either try to build up value by comparing it to other things, and also build up value through sales and through language by saying, listen, does it matter if you pay me $2,500 if you make 2 times that back in a month, right? Those are all good techniques. Everybody that's competent has them in their toolkit. But there's one strategic positioning tactic or method, whatever you want to call it, that's even more effective than that. That's when you could say, hey, these people over here paid this much for this, and you're only going to pay a fraction of what they paid for it. And that is really where it's super valuable, because now you're not comparing it to something else. You're comparing it to itself. So on a practical level, here's what this meant. Will and I are looking at this problem that nobody, A, nobody's bought this program. B, we don't have a program to sell. So how do we create the program? And C, we don't have a value established for this that would give us the sharpest axe possible to chop down this tree. So what we did was the following. We sent out an email just to a small segment of our audience saying, hey, listen, we got the system. We're now doing it. It's working well for us. It's working well for the 6 people that Dan showed it to as well. It's in crypto. It's different. It's weird. And here's the deal. Dan's willing to attempt to teach it to you via 2 private one-on-one Zoom sessions, and we'll see if we can teach this to you. Now, here are the caveats. 1, you have to invest at least $5,000. You can't invest more than $25,000. Caveat number 2 is your risk tolerance has to be a 10 out of 10, meaning that like you're the kind of guy that goes to Vegas, puts it on black, and don't care if you win or not. And the third criteria is, well, nobody likes to lose $25,000. If you lost $25,000, it wouldn't change your lifestyle. You would still be able to pay the rent next month. If you agree to these 3 terms and you want to pay $10,000, we'll take you in, and Dan can only take in 14 people at a time, and we'll cycle through it. If you're interested, let us know. I'm giving the very condensed version of this, but essentially that's the initial story that we built out. Now, what did we do here? A couple things. If people were to buy this, we've established a price tag at $10,000. So if we sell it later for $2,500, it's a 75% discount essentially. Now, it's not the exact same thing because Dan's teaching this informally via one-on-one sessions as opposed to in a course, but it's the same material.
Right.
The second thing we've done here is we've extended the ability to have strangers with results, as I call it, right? Hey, Dan took people from all walks of life, young, old, black, brown, white, yellow, whatever the different genders are these days. Maybe we have more than 2, right? We'll take them all, experience, no experience, what have you, and have a wide variety of different case studies and use cases that could validate that this thing actually works. And so we have that. And then the third thing that we have here as well is the ability to test this out. Are people interested in this? To what degree are they interested in it? Can we focus on just making sure we can actually teach this and validate this without any negative ramification? Now, there's a couple little extra special flavors I put in there, Brad. Here's the first thing. You got to think like the end customer far before you ever get to the end customer. We put a cap on $25,000. We said you can't invest more than that because I had anticipated that if some millionaire came and put like $200,000 into the system, Joe and Jane at home watching on a webinar later say, well, no wonder it worked for them. It's $200,000. I only have, $5,000 to put in. So we had already anticipated future potential objections and future proof them in advance. We also made them sign an agreement that said we could share what their results were. So not like, hopefully they'll let us share it later. Like, no, it was hardcore black and white. You're going to be part of this program and you're going to get first dibs at the table. We also disclosed and told them, Brad, we will sell this later for $2,500. You can wait later and purchase it, or you can get the one-on-ones. And then this is an aside, but what I find is a lot of people are very timid in their marketing. Like it's your planet. You make the rules, build it however you want it to be. And people will generally respect that more than the normal smoke and mirrors that you see in marketing. So when we're telling them, we are going to sell this course later, you could wait for later. I don't know if that's a good idea for you or not, but it might be, it might not be. If you lost $25,000, you could lose it all. I don't know. I can't predict the future. You're going to have to be okay with that. Now, these are the tastemakers. This isn't your mass market, right?
Well, let me back out of that for a second.
Please do. And you'll have to do this several times because I get on a beat and I don't stop, right?
Well, of course. So, Jason, this clearly illustrates why we can stay up until 2:00 in the morning drinking wine and talking, and why you get in a group of people and start talking and I can't pull you away because you get so engaged, which, by the way, is engaging for everybody because all of it is super valuable. But I want to recap a little because
please.
one of the first things that you said was strategy before marketing, right? Strategic thinking and placement, strategic positioning, I think was the language before marketing. And a lot of the things that you're talking about and alluding to are thinking through the process. So when you talk about, hey, a lot of marketers don't feel like they can control their own world, right? It is your world to market is the language that you used. Yep. I think part of that is that people don't step back enough to think about all of the nuances of what you just said you were thinking about, right?
Good point.
Two, is you said you wanted to make sure that there was a problem present and you had a product you could deliver to solve the problem. And you realized right away that you didn't have the evidence to do that. And so instead of launching the product right away, which by the way, you could have, right? Yeah. You could have just done the launch with the product. You're in a crypto market that's hot as hell, right? The whole world wants to participate, but doesn't know how really. You could have launched and sold the shit out of that still.
Yeah, we would have made millions, right?
Absolutely. But instead, you said, hey, you know what? We want to solve this constraint that we see that's going to be upcoming, which is people need evidence. They're not, having middle-aged, rich white people succeed at this is not something I can relate. Most people can relate to, or a lot of the audience can relate to. How do we solve that? And so before you even went down the path, you were strategically thinking through how to knock those problems out so that when you did the official launch, you had already solved those things.
Right. And while limiting the downside.
Next up, George Bryant. Here's a question for you. What segment of your audience are you trying to talk to? If you're like me and most people, we're trying to talk to the people to get them to buy. We're trying to talk to the people that are right there on the edge that might buy right now. George argues that you should spend most of your time not talking to the 1% that are ready to buy, but building a relationship with the 99% that aren't there yet. It's a different twist on where your marketing energy and dollars should be spent, and I love it. Let me know what you think in the comments, but George Bryant is a brilliant marketing mind that's worked with some of the best people on the planet and grown some of the greatest companies on the planet.
Our job isn't to find customers, it's to create customers, right? So when we think about the first $1 million for a company, right? Typically that comes from creating a product or a solution that solves an immediate problem that people are having, right? And so there's always a subset of an audience that if you hit them with the right thing at the right moment, it doesn't even matter if they have a relationship with you. It serves a need in their life, right? And it helps them solve that challenge. But if we're thinking about industry standards, right? That's less than 1% of your audience where you can just run a cold ad and like it hits the right pain point at the right point in their life and gets them enrolled. What everybody fails to recognize is that when all you do is spend time trying to find those 1%, what you're doing is you're actually pushing the other 99% further away. And the philosophy of customer journey is not necessarily trying to convert everybody. It's trying to build the Truman Show so that they don't realize they're constantly in your world, but they're somewhere between 1 and 100 touch points away from becoming that ideal customer, right? And so when we think about direct response is incredible. I mean, a lot of us are here because of direct response marketing. Like I remember when Facebook ads came out, and for every $1 we put in, we would make 10 and we didn't have to do anything. We would just run an ad. It had no copy that was good. It had no images that was good. There was no segmentation. It was just literally like a jackpot machine rigged to win. But what a lot of people fail to recognize is that in the very beginning, when you're so aggressive and you're just convert, it works in the beginning until it no longer works. And the people that have that pain point are no longer there because they don't recognize the need. And that's where customer journey comes in. It's that other 99%. And in that world, what we have to realize is that people are always just trying to take stepping stones towards their goals. And you think about, I'll use a very big example like Nike. Right? If you walk by a billboard for Nike, it doesn't say just do it only if you give me your credit card, right? And Apple doesn't say like you can only come in my store if you pre-commit to purchasing because they understand that the more touch points that people have with the product, with the ecosystem and with the environment, the more endowment they get. And naturally, it changes somebody's proclivity to where they have that pain point. They naturally gravitate towards that product. And so when we think about customer journey, there will always be a point in business and marketing where we have to go sell and we have to be direct response and we have to close customers. But the shortcoming that I've noticed in the last couple years with 300 companies plus doing this is that when that's all you're focused on, what you're missing is everything you need to scale, because there's not one business that does 50 million or 100 million a year from getting people to have one transaction, then turn around and basically not like you. All of the companies that scale have relationships, and the relationship is deeper than the product itself, where the product serves as a bridge, right? To go from where they are to where they want to be, but it creates a relationship regardless of that product, right? And we can throw out examples all day, like Onnit. Onnit doesn't sell Alpha Brain. Onnit doesn't sell New Mood. Onnit sells total human optimization.
Yeah.
And if that product serves that need, and all they do is like, oh, I have a memory issue, and they come by Alpha Brain, well, the moment their memory is better, subconsciously, like, I don't need Onnit anymore. And they go back out into the sea. But when it's around total human optimization, and it's like, hey, you can get Alpha Brain, you can get a body weight workout, you can buy a Star Wars kettlebell, Captain America plates, New Mood, whatever, and you're going to use this to meet your current need, but this is really about optimizing who you are as a human. Then when that need is served, instead of leaving, they start to look at the other avenues or paths that they can take to elevate the rest of their life. And that's predicated on a relationship. And those relationships only come, and I use this analogy all the time, from building the Truman Show. And if you've never seen that movie, Jim Carrey thinks he's living like his best, most beautiful, happy life, but he's in this massive container where everything is controlled, and he doesn't realize he can't leave. And when I think about business and when I think about scale, the way that we do that is by building a Truman Show, because so many people fall short on their site to where everything is about the conversion. But what we fail to recognize is you have a subset of your audience that sells more of your products than you could ever realize, and they've never bought one from you. They are your best marketing machines because they live the ethos, they understand the environment, and they're completely endowed into the culture and the relationship. And so when we talk about customer journey, what we're talking about is ensuring that every time somebody comes into our home, if they're a good fit, that they're moving one step closer to their goal, whether or not they buy a product from us or not. And in my experience with all my companies, all the ones I own and that I run, what's really, really crazy, if we extract the data out, we have so many people that generate literally thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue for us that have never even bought our product. They've never even used it, or they bought it once, they loved it, but it wasn't what they needed. But because of the relationship, they literally tell every one of their friends, right? And the example I give is like, when you walk up to the park on a Saturday morning in Austin, right? You go to the park, there's about 30 moms doing a park workout. They have their Bob strollers, they got their Starbucks cups, they got everything rocking, right? And in the first 60 seconds of a conversation, typically those women give 8 to 10 brand recommendations or non-recommendations without even realizing it, right? They're giving them verbally, they're giving them just with who they are. But you think about it, it's like, okay, cool. When was the last time you heard somebody talk about how bad their dinner experience was? They bond over it, right? They talk about, oh, my dinner was great, or my dinner wasn't that good. Or, hey, last night, you'll never believe it, I went to buy this product from this company, realized it wasn't a good fit. They gave me a refund and they gave me a workout guide for 30 days. That woman's not a customer, but she's mind blown.
Yeah.
Because not only did we refund her product, but we're like, hey, we still knew you were interested in fitness. So here's our 30-day at-home guide, go crush it. And then she goes and tells all 30 of those women as she's standing there, right? Or like collagen when we did Vital Proteins, right? Like we knew why women were buying collagen. They want a healthier hair, skin, and nails. Not everybody wants to take collagen. Not everybody wants to drink beef skin hydrolyzed down into collagen peptides, right? But we knew that what they all shared in common is that they had this need to be healthy from the inside out. And so like when you would add a product to a cart, and you would abandon the product, right? I like to teach in mistakes, so I'll hit one right now. If somebody adds a product to a cart and then they don't buy, what's the mistake I watch most e-commerce companies make? Is the first thing they immediately do, well, they either do nothing or they devalue their brand and they're like, oh, by the way, I was never going to charge you full price anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Here's 20% off because my product's not worth it.
Yeah.
And let me try to convince you to come back in.
Yeah.
Rather than understanding that they raised their hand and like, I want your help, but something was missing for me to buy this product. And instead of actually doing the legwork, we just devalue ourselves on the front. So what we started doing was we made an at-home 30-day guide to healthier skin, increasing skin elasticity. And so when you would abandon my cart, I would send you a digital product for free and I'd never mention collagen again. And I'd be like, here's what I want you to do. Because whether you buy our collagen or not, these are the things that are going to make it more effective. And over 4 or 5 days, we started changing their diet and their sleep and their hydration and their supplementation. And then we recovered 50% of cart abandons without spending $1 or discounting the brand. Not because it was ever about the product. It was about the need and them not feeling safe enough to come in. And so when I think about customer journey, we have to recognize that every single time somebody gives us their attention, at some level, consciously or subconsciously, they're interested in what we have to offer. And if all we do is focus on the people that are ready to give us their credit card right now, we're basically eliminating everything that we have that we can build and scale to build this massive business to 8 figures, 9 figures, and beyond. Because you hit a point when you scale that no matter what you do, you're not going to go find 1 million more people that have a current pain point that matches what you do that you can solve in one touch point. Everything's based on this system and world. So that's kind of how I see it.
Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million. The podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.